Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. It is February 17th, 2023, and we're going to do our update on natural gas today. We'll also look at oil, we'll look at UNG. We'll start with natural gas, and we have made a new low. And that is technically day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So definitely, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Take a look at the pinned comment. That'll give you some background on cycles, and also just important price action signals. And just as a reminder, cycles are, at least the way I use cycles, are really just a different way of thinking about price action. It's a way to just make it easier to quantify. So again, as I've said in previous videos, this is an example of a cycle here where this is the start of the cycle. The cycle always starts with a swing low and always ends with a swing low. And we talked about, and there's a whole video on swing lows, a whole video on swing highs. Swing low is how an uptrend begins. Swing high is how a downtrend begins. So this swing low started this uptrend. It was very short. This is a daily chart, by the way. It only lasted 5 days. This swing high started this downtrend. This downtrend was very long. It lasted 35 days. That's what this 40 is. This 40 is telling us that this whole period from this swing low to this swing low is 40 days. 5-day rally, 35-day decline. I don't have to tell you that's incredibly bearish. If you rally for 5 days and then decline for 4 days, that sucks. Now, there is the question, was this our daily cycle low here the Friday before last? So the Friday, it was February 3rd. We're now breaking down below that level. And so just kind of easy math. If this wasn't our daily cycle low, then that means we're on day 50, right? Because there have been 10 days since this low here. So let's pretend if this wasn't our low, then this is just day 50 and the cycle continues. In some ways, it doesn't really matter. I talk about this all the time. Don't get too hung up on the cycle counts. Understand the price action. Are we making lower lows? If we are in a downtrend, folks. Are we making higher highs? If that's the case, we're probably in an uptrend. In this case, we're clearly still in a downtrend. Now, one thing they do to confirm a cycle is and again, I don't necessarily subscribe to this kind of thinking, but I'm trying to explain to you the logic. One thing you want to see is a close above the 10-day moving average. So first off, one thing you have to see is a swing low. And we got a swing low by crossing above the low of this candle here. So because this candle marks the low, that was your previous low at 2.341. Once we crossed above the high of that candle, we made a swing low. So we confirmed that swing low 2 days later. And we then just consolidated. Usually with a daily cycle advance, you start to have a little uptrend, as we talked about. In this case, it's like you could say it started an uptrend, like the uptrend started here, and then it just kind of petered out after 2 days. So just to be really clear, this is day 1, this is day 2, actually this is day 3. And we've talked about this before. This is day 3, and it's a bearish outside candle, made a new high and made a new low. And we talked about how the bearish scenario would be that this was the high on day 3, in the same way that this was the high on day 5. So we're in a scenario where we might have gotten our daily cycle low here on day 40, and we may be now just declining into another daily cycle low after topping out on day 3. That's a really bearish interpretation. Now, again, the way you know a cycle happened is you have a swing low, we have that, check. That's here on day 40. We also need to close above the 10-day moving average. And so we didn't close above it. The 10-day moving average is this blue line here. So day 1, 2, 3, we did not close above the 10-day moving average on day 3 when we made that high, because we reversed lower, we failed. We were on pace to close above it. You can see that, right? We were on pace to close above it, but didn't quite do that. More consolidation next day. And then we closed above it. Then we closed below it. And then we closed above it again. So I would say you can check the box on closing above the 10-day moving average. We did. And then the other criteria is this notion of a declining trend line. Price should cross above the declining trend line. So you generally draw the declining trend line from your swing high of the previous cycle down, right? And so in this case, because of the angle of this, we can't even really draw it from here. So we have to draw it from like here, and this is your declining trend line. And you can see we did cross above it. We closed above it. And that's because this is so steep that we basically have a trend line that's like just straight down. Then obviously you're going to cross above it at some point. Because at some point, the 10-day moving average becomes somewhat synonymous with the trend line. All that to say, I think these methods are a little bit dubious, which is why I don't use them quite as much. But just understand, that's the logic. So the most bearish interpretation here is that this was the completion of one really long 40-day cycle, and now we're in another cycle that's only on day 10, and it has a high on day 3. So just as this had a high on day 5, excuse me, this is a potential high on day 3. That would be really bad news. But whether it's a cycle or whether this was a cycle low or not, we're obviously still in a downtrend because we just made a new lower low. What does that mean for the weekly? So we talked about this idea that, we either have, this is either a bearish cycle at 16 weeks, and then this is another bearish cycle. It's starting to look like this is a second bearish cycle. And so this was a cycle that was 26 weeks, high on week 23, decline for 3 weeks. Then you have a 7-week rally, decline for 11 weeks into a 16-week cycle low. And now we've had a 4-week rally, and I think this is week 15. Let's see. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, week 16. So we're already at the same length as the previous cycle, but we don't have any evidence of a swing low yet. So just like on the daily chart, we need a swing low, a daily swing low. We're going to need a weekly swing low to confirm a cycle low on the weekly level. And it's pretty clear where that is. I just draw, like it's going to be above this candle now. Because this, excuse me, this candle is marking the low now. And so just as we needed to cross above the high of the candle that marked the low on the daily, we need to do the same thing on the weekly. So for the natural gas, that is 2.623. And we'll mark those same levels on oil and UNG so that folks are aware. The other thing I'll call out is that this was a double inside week. I had tweeted about this. Definitely take a look at the pinned comment if you're not following on Twitter. You should. That allows us, I'm able to give out, quicker updates. And so last week we had an inside week, and it was also the first green week in like 7 weeks. So it was the first week where we didn't make a lower low in the last 7 weeks. And then we also remained green, which was awesome. This week we oscillated back and forth. At one point this was green, but you can see it opened as an inside week because we know it opened here. Now we've broken down below the low again because we made that new low. And so we talked about the fact that an inside week is a relatively rare pattern. It doesn't happen very often. And what it does is it gives price a chance to catch its breath, consolidate. The catch is the consolidation could break to either side. And in this case, because it's a downtrend, usually consolidations break in the direction that the trend that started the consolidation. So in this case, this is a huge downtrend and we consolidate. So it's not surprising that we're moving lower now. But it's still entirely possible that you can get a reversal off of this, just like this trend lower, this got a reversal. We got a little bit of a higher high. Here we got a little bit of a rally. Here we got very little rally, and now we're moving lower. Though this obviously isn't huge downside yet. But this sets up for more downside next week because, again, the idea is that this downtrend needed to pause for it to continue to go lower, and this may have just been the refresh that it needed to get you that next leg lower, right? In the same way that this is a big pause, like you can kind of I want to make sure that everybody is like clear on this. You see, this move down needed to catch its breath, and it did that by doing this, and then it did that, and now we got this little feeble thing. And you would expect that we do this and then probably do that and then that again. So, and we talked about this from a seasonality perspective, right? So from a seasonality perspective, February tends to be a really crummy month for natural gas, for UNG. So as your proxy, this is actually just going back 6 years. If I remove this, I go all the way back to 2007, right? So same pattern. It's a pretty crummy month, 31% win rate, and April tends to be the best month of all. And so it wouldn't be surprising if we continue to see weakness in March and we finally get our bottom in April. Obviously, we'll watch the price action in real time. And so that's your weekly chart. And if we look at the monthly, we talked about the fact that we had a chance for this to go from green to red to green. That obviously didn't happen. And again, if you're thinking about a long-term bottom, we're going to need to cross back above the low of this month. And so, the high of this month. So the high of this month is 2.780. And so as we go lower and lower, we're going to just need to reclaim that level. So that's a good potential upside target to keep in mind. Let's look at BOIL and UNG. So same patterns. Let's look at the weekly. So at this point, this weekly candle is making a new low. The high for this weekly candle is 664. So we need to get back above that high for a weekly swing low and a chance at an ICL. And if you look at the daily, we made a new low this today. And so theoretically, Monday, if we can trade above $5.37, that would make this a swing low and give you kind of a chance. And needless to say, you can't have a weekly swing low without a daily swing low. So we're going to need to see a daily swing low first to have any chance at one on the weekly level. And if we look at UNG, what is that level? So on the weekly, we have to get back above $8.90. And on the monthly chart, that level is $9. So we have to get to have a real bottom, we're going to need to see something like this, right? I mean, and then preferably like that, like some follow through. Maybe there's a month where it pulls back, but then it keeps going, right? That's what we're going to want to see eventually. We're nowhere near that yet, obviously. So something that you'll just need to be aware of to the downside. And we've already talked about the fact that UNG was on its way to new all-time lows, and we've obviously made those. And so at this point, downside targets are pretty kind of wide open, unfortunately. What I will say, and I keep saying this, like just know that natural gas is not the only game in town. In fact, let's just look at if we just look at an annual chart. Again, not to belabor the point here, but this is an annual chart of UNG, meaning let's just make this so every candle is 1 year of price action. Look at this thing. My God. And then, like, just in general, the structure, just down. But look at this big red candle for the yearly. Obviously, super early. A lot of trading to happen. But, I mean, look at this. Versus something like, let's just even say Bitcoin. Well, what do you know? That's nice. And, like, does this look like a chart that's going up to you or down? Like, think about the reverse, right? Or semis. Look at that. Nice little reverse. Like, we're about to try to make a new high on, like this is trying to make a move back to all-time highs. I'm not saying we're going to be there tomorrow, but these charts are very different. What about ETH? Again, same kind of picture as Bitcoin. That's what you want to see, this nice green candle. There's still a lot of trading to happen, but look at the potential, right? This thing is trying to take out this high, and then we're off to the races. I also talked about Uber. Look at these. Like, these are very different candles. Look at Uber. Uber makes a move above, that $46 area. Then it could set it up for all-time highs again. Again, big green candle moving higher. Whereas with BOIL, what do you have? Ooh, yikes. I mean, I hope if you're familiar enough with this channel, you know how bearish this chart is and how incredibly risky it is to throw money in here. At one point, this will turn around, but we clearly have a long way to go. So we're going to leave it at that. I'll continue to give updates, as I said, on Twitter, and obviously put videos out as new things happen. But we're on that trip to more all-time lows for UNG and BOIL, unfortunately.